Quiet, numbskulls, I'm broadcasting.
The medical marijuana. The medical marijuana. Radio show. The medical marijuana for you and me. Ah, yeah, the medical marijuana. Whoa, 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 ah, yeah, the medical. It's the medical marijuana show. You will know. I want to talk to you.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Medical Marijuana Radio for Saturday, the 17th of May, 2014. I'm your host, Larry Love, and we are here every Saturday evening. We've put our Friday show on hiatus for the summer, and so we're here every Saturday night at 6 o'clock Pacific, 7 Mountain, 9 p.m. on the East Coast to bring you the latest information available for medical marijuana, recreational marijuana, everything cannabis. And, of course, we would love your calls. So if you'd like to call in later, the lines are 505-514-0098, 575-5194-MMJ, Arizona, 623-399-4MMJ, California, 818-8500-MMJ. And, of course, you can always Skype MMJ Radio. And tonight we will do a bunch of news. We have more news about what's happening here in New Mexico with the disastrous new rules that are proposed by the state. And we're going to play some clips from the big news conference the other day that was held, actually yesterday. And, of course, we will have a couple people on from healthyhopes.org. And this is an organization that, among other things, helps people who need to move to a medical marijuana state or obviously Colorado or Washington. So we'll know more about that at the bottom of the hour. But first, here in New Mexico every Saturday night, we read the strain report for you. And if you're going to find the strains that you need and that you like, you've got to shop around.
You better shop around. Oh, yeah, you better shop around. Shop around.
Okay, so with that being sung and said, Canaceutics in Albuquerque this week will have four corners: Super Lemon Haze, Original Amnesia, Girl Scout Cookies from British Columbia, Pineapple Express, and Shit. That's Canaceutics in Albuquerque. C.G. Corrigan, they will have 34 active strains. The indicas are Pineapple Thai, Kushberry, Blackwater Kush, and Maximum Kush. Their sativas are Sour Chem, Blue Dream, Green Crack, Alaskan Thunderfuck, Skunk No. 1, and Shipwreck. Their hybrids are, looks like it says Sativa Dominant Hybrid, Sour Chem crossed with 18, Headband, Golden Goat, I've heard a lot about that, Cinderella 99, Deadhead OG, Sage, White Fire crossed with Sour Chem, Sour Diesel, and Flow. And I've had Flow before. It's real good. Their hybrids that are indica dominant are Jedi Death Star, God's Gift, G13 Haze, Grand Platinum, Whiteberry, Mango Kush, OG Kush No. 18, Humboldt Grape, Skywalker OG Kush, Northern Lights. Their hybrids are Funky and Uprise OG, and their CBD Strong are Canatonic, Atoda Madre, and Champagne. Again, that's C.G. Corrigan. Over at New Mexican, they have this week G13 Haze, White Shark, L.A. Confidential, Trainwreck, UBC Chemo, Jack Herer, CBD AK-47, CBD Shark Shock. They also have Popcorn Bud of Critical Plus, CBD AK-47, CBD is Z7, and their popcorn bud is $32 an eighth. Over at our Greenleaf, Cataract Kush, G13 Haze, Greenleaf, Kosher Kush, a great strain, Super Lemon Haze, another great strain, Sweet Tooth, and Wow. Over at Sandia Botanicals, they will have Blue Dream, Diesel Tonic, and Shipwreck. So that is the strain report. And now we are going to move on to some news. And we've got some news for you.
1, 2, 3. I've got news for you.
Okay, so I'm going to read you a couple of news stories, and then we will play some clips from the news conference the other day here in New Mexico. This first story is really tells about what's going on in the heads of law enforcement. You know, it's always about law enforcement and not really about the patients. And this is from CNN.com. Woman arrested for 2 joints. She was a legal medical marijuana patient, and it caused her to miss her chemo. This is from Michigan. A 59-year-old legal medical marijuana patient with cancer was forced to miss her chemotherapy treatment because her 2 joints weren't in a locked container. Some of the bruises that the arresting officer put on me, says the patient yesterday, over 2 joints that were in a container in my purse, not in a locked container. And then she was jailed. Suffice it to say that a system who allows, condones, and perpetuates the manhandling of a 59-year-old legal medical marijuana patient, a grandma with stomach cancer and life-threatening heart conditions, locking them up for almost 24 hours in a glassed-in cell, open toilet with guards and other inmates walking by on a cement slab. Nothing to eat. That one is permitted without a stomach. I guess she has stomach cancer and can't eat very much. And denied their dose of chemotherapy, now a missed dose with new tumors on the lung and spine, and then their heart medications until noon the next day. After the family blew up their phones, it's a messed up system indeed, she says. Did I mention that the meth head in the kitty corner glassed-in cell who continuously masturbated while staring at me, and when the guards would go by now and then to tell him to put it away, he proceeded to smear some whatever on the rest that he had on a glass. Anyway, this woman really has a lawsuit, and we'll have to keep up on this particular story. That's totally outrageous. That would cause her, having a card, legal person, not only to pull them over and hassle them, put them in jail for a day and cause them to miss their chemotherapy. That's just bad. This next one. Marijuana use is linked to lower stroke risk. From May 13th, this is from LeafScience.com. Those who use marijuana may benefit from a reduced chance of stroke, according to a new study. As part of the stroke prevention in young adults, the study, researchers from the University of Maryland analyzed past marijuana use among 751 stroke cases and 813 controls. The results, which span 16 years, showed that those who used marijuana were less likely to suffer a stroke, and then 28.8% of stroke patients reported marijuana use versus 32.7% of those with no history of stroke. While the decrease in stroke risk was statistically significant, the researchers stressed that the link does not necessarily prove that marijuana is protective. The findings were presented earlier this month at the American Academy of Neurology's 66th annual meeting. We don't suspect that this implicates a protective effect of marijuana on ischemic stroke risk, said lead researcher and presenter Tara Dutta, MD of the University of Maryland School of Medicine. We will go back and look at our data more carefully and do some additional analysis to see if we can look for potential co-founders. Anyway, that is good news, and there's more to that article if you'd like to read it. Again, it's LeafScience.com. Now, what I'd like to do is play some clips from the news conference yesterday that Willie Ford from R. Greenleaf and the New Mexico Patients Alliance had set up. And it was quite interesting. Former Governor Gary Johnson of New Mexico was there. A potential new governor, I hope, Alan Weber, he was there, and he was quite good. There was a gentleman, a patient, that will play his comments next week. But first, let's play Gary Johnson's very emotional and passionate response to the new rules here in New Mexico that are proposed for the medical cannabis program that will probably cause a disaster. So here's former Governor Gary Johnson.
We have 2.3 million people behind bars in this country. We have the highest incarceration rate of any country in the world, and that isn't just rate, that is actual overall numbers. You realize China has 1 million fewer people behind bars, and they have 4 times the population? Well, what's the main reason for that? The main reason for it is our drug laws. That is the main reason, and I'm going to argue that 90% of the drug problem is prohibition-related, not use-related. That's not to discount the problems with use and abuse, but that should be the focus. In 1999, when I said, let's legalize marijuana, I mean as in legalize marijuana, let's adopt harm reduction strategies regarding all these other drugs. And then about that same time, we have the seeds that are being planted for medical marijuana programs nationwide. And yes, I gave my support to this, absolutely. But I gave my support to this thinking, you know what? Any way that we can decriminalize the use of marijuana, the better. Any way that we can reduce the amount of people going to jail, the better. But what I've come to find out is that there are some incredible benefits when it comes to the use of marijuana. Now, I was not aware of that at the time, and that's something that really everybody needs to understand. This is not a ruse for people just to smoke pot. This is a way for people to make their lives better. And I would like to share with you my own marijuana story that made my life better in an amazing way. I was a child insomniac. I could not sleep. Going to sleep at night was trauma because for the most part I didn't sleep at night. And this went on for 17 years. And I smoked marijuana one time. And I stopped being an insomniac. Now, I'm not saying that I smoked marijuana and was able to sleep. I'm saying I smoked marijuana one time and it turned off the switch. And I actually had a neurologist in New York City talk to me and explain to me why that actually happened. I couldn't repeat a sentence of what he had to say. Let me offer a prediction for these new rules and regulations. As a result of these new rules and regulations, more people are going to get arrested, more people are going to go behind bars, because why are you going to spend $150? Why are you going to go through the hassle that Joel points out in getting your medical marijuana card? So more people are going to end up behind bars. And then why do any of this in New Mexico when it's legal in Colorado? We can drive over to Colorado, get it, and come back. Well, let me tell you what's coming. What's coming down the pike, and that's roadblocks that'll be set up at the New Mexico border to catch people coming back. Point is, more people are going to end up behind bars than less people. These rules where the license goes from $30,000 to $90,000 a year. You know, this the notion is that the state is going to raise money, make more money off the marijuana program. What people don't understand is that the money that gets raised from taxes in Colorado or fees or whatever gets dwarfed, absolutely dwarfed by the savings when it comes to law enforcement, the courts, and the prisons, which currently is about 50% of the funding in all of those areas. This is very, very significant. A supporter of mine just a couple of days ago, unrelated to this, sends me an email, says, patient goes from 40 medications to using cannabis extract in a drink. Well, this is actually what is happening. Joel said, let me give you the numbers. 8,000 people die every year from overdose cocaine and heroin. People say, well, that number is so low because it's illegal. No, you could argue that that number would be at almost zero if you could control these substances, quality, quantity, known. Over 100,000 people die every year from their use of legal prescription drugs. So this is a much, much safer alternative. CBD oil. I can't believe the ramifications of CBD oil, proven to shrink tumors in cancer patients. Skin care, anti-inflammatory. And this is not THC. This is just the oil derived from the cannabis plant. The majority of Americans support legalization. That has never happened before. Legalization, not medical marijuana. Medical marijuana, 85% of Americans support medical marijuana. These rule-making regulatory changes, such as we have here right now, for the most part, go unnoticed. Wake up, New Mexico. This is a political agenda that is going to do a lot more harm than good. Thank you.
So that was former Governor Gary Johnson, who was a Republican. I think he's an independent now. Maybe if more Republicans would smoke marijuana, they would leave the party and do some good for the people instead of the crap that the Republicans always throw at us. Anyway, next is a gentleman named Alan Weber, who is running for governor on the Democratic ticket here. There's going to be a primary to see who runs in November. But make up your own mind. Listen to Alan Weber and see if you feel he's got the passion for the medical marijuana program that maybe Susana Martinez doesn't have.
Today, Alan Weber is with us. Thank you very much, Alan.
Thank you. Thanks for listening. Thank you very much. I'm very happy to be here today and to add my voice and to add my support to what to me is an important part of New Mexico's compassionate approach to dealing with our people who need medical help. And I'm even more happy to be here with my friend Governor Johnson, who is a longtime leader on this subject. And I'm also delighted that in the past people have said, "Oh, Alan, you're a Democratic Gary Johnson," and I take that as a huge compliment. So to be here today is really my great honor. As a businessman, I'm always looking for solutions that work to problems that matter, solutions that make sense, that actually help people. And we know that the medical cannabis program makes sense, helps people, and is something that all New Mexicans can be proud of and actually talk with great distinction about, that we have this program. I want to just add my voice to say that this program ought not to be harmed. It ought to be expanded. It helps people, and that's the bottom line. For me, the real focus of this program is patients who need help. And they're people, we've already met Joel just now, who started by saying, do I look like a medical cannabis user? And the answer is yes, you do. Because you look like thousands of New Mexicans who need this medicine, rely on it, and depend on it to make their lives better. That's the bottom line of this program. It makes people's lives more livable and more healthy. It takes people who would otherwise be in pain or in suffering and gives them medical relief. I'm particularly struck by the number of veterans who need medical cannabis, and you use the number 40%. I think that's a really important reminder that we have servicemen and women coming home and they are dealing with post-traumatic stress. We call them heroes, and they are. And then when it comes to dealing with the medical needs they have, instead of supporting them, we make their lives more difficult under this new set of proposed rules. I think also an important thing we need to remember is that while we're in this room talking about the importance of medical cannabis, overwhelmingly, New Mexicans support this program. We're not the only ones who believe this is the right thing to do. There is huge support across the state for doing this, for helping people through a program that provides medicine that alleviates suffering. The people who are opposed to it are in the minority. The people who support it are the vast majority of New Mexicans. And so because of that, I believe we should be making the medical cannabis program less burdensome, less hard to get access to, more available, and not more difficult. And these regulations are moving in the wrong direction. They are punitive. They are designed to take a program that's working and make it less available and less easy and more expensive. That makes no sense. That's moving in the wrong direction. In fact, I believe we ought to be expanding the program to include some conditions that currently aren't covered. For example, traumatic brain injury. That, to me, ought to be part of this program. So rather than limiting it, shrinking it, and making it punitive, let's look at people in New Mexico who need medicine and ought to be able to get it and afford it. Let's expand the supply to meet the demand. I just want to end by saying this. I think the goal of this gathering is to show support for a program that works and to articulate and advocate the need not for a program that is harder, but a program that is easier. Not for a program that's more expensive, but for a program that is more affordable for more people. That's what we ought to be doing in New Mexico. We ought to support and build a statewide program that helps our medical cannabis patients get what they need. And I'm very happy to be here to add my voice and my support for that kind of a future-looking program. Thank you.
Okay, so that was Democratic candidate for governor, Alan Weber, and Susana Martinez, the current governor, when she was campaigning 4 years ago to become governor, she right out front said, I'm against the marijuana program. I'm a former prosecutor, and it's drugs and it's a gateway and all that stuff. So remember November when you are going to vote for a governor. You can either vote for a governor that says things like Alan Weber, or you can vote for someone who is going to shut down the program and do exactly what she's doing right now, making it harder, making it worse for New Mexico. So now, to wrap things up on the news conference, this is Willie Ford, director of our Greenleaf, and he cares too.
Thank you, Governor.
That is fantastic. I want to thank everybody for coming today. You know, I wasn't going to say anything, but I feel like I've been moved to ask the Department of Health. I think it's always important to have a solution. When you bring a problem to the podium, you have a responsibility to bring a solution with you. I would ask the Department of Health to take out all the non-essential rules and regulations that they've included in these proposed changes. And allow the very important increase in production that will allow us as producers to serve our patients. I applaud their efforts to try to get those changes made, but right now the most important thing, and the thing that has been most important across the board, is the patients and being able to access safe medicine. They're guaranteed that right by the legislature, and I feel strongly that the department has promised and not delivered on increasing the production. So I asked them to strip away all the non-essential rules and simply pass the rules that will allow us to serve our patients in this program. I want to thank everybody for coming today, and especially Governor Johnson, gubernatorial candidate Alan Weber, Joel White, thank you very much, and Tim Scott for the Patients Alliance support. Thank you, people. Okay,
so that was pretty much the main part of the news conference, and of course they're going to promote people to get up here to Santa Fe for the public hearing on June the 16th. And if you check the Facebook page and the New Mexico Cannabis Alliance, they're going to have free rides on the rail runner from Albuquerque all the way up to the meeting and back. So check into that. We need to get as many people there as possible. It's very important. There are over 4,000 growers of patient growers here in this state, and they're trying to take away half your medicine. They only want you to grow 2 plants and have 6 seedlings instead of 4 and 12. That's cutting your medicine in half. So hang on a second. Let's. Hi, you're on the air, Medical Marijuana Radio.
Hey, Larry, it's Tim Scott.
I'm sorry, who's this?
Tim Scott.
Hi, Tim. Go ahead, man. I was just playing the news conference, which went very well. It sounds like. What do you have to say?
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that you were aware and your listeners were aware of something. I spoke with the Department of Health on Friday morning before the news conference, and they informed me that the meeting on the 16th will be capacity only. Once they reach capacity, no one else will be allowed in. I think that's disgraceful, absolutely disgraceful, because this is a public hearing. The public will not be completely allowed in to voice their concerns. It will be only the people that get the seats, and they're the only ones that will be in that auditorium. Period.
Wow. You know what? They continually, Tim, try to shut us down. They've done absolutely nothing over the last 4 years to make this program any better. It doesn't surprise me that they're doing this. So everybody, get there early and get in if you have something to say. Otherwise, wait outside and make some noise, and maybe some news reporters will be there. We need a show of force there, Tim.
Larry, what we've got planned for this is, and we're going to be talking about this tomorrow at our monthly meeting. The meeting is at 3:30 over at High Desert Relief. If anybody wants to come and be part of this, we're going to be planning a couple of events during the next month prior to the upcoming meeting. We're going to start making signs. The people that are going to be out front that are not allowed in the auditorium, we're going to have a full-on rally. They're going to be out there with the signs. We're going to let the news stations know about this. They'll see the signs. They'll see the sick patients that are not able to get their medicine. This is important. We need everybody to show up for this.
Absolutely. I totally agree, Tim. If there's anything I can help you do, you know that I'm there for you and the Alliance. I thank you for all of your hard work that you guys do down there. And, of course, you and Willie and the news conference yesterday was really spectacular. If you want to watch the whole thing, there is a video of it up on YouTube. Do you know that address, Tim?
No, you can also find it up on the Alliance Facebook page. We do have it posted. The full video is up there.
Okay, what's your Alliance's Facebook page so people can...
It's going to just be Facebook /NMMCPA.
There you go. Okay, we're going to take a little break. Tim, thank you very much for calling in and letting us know this. And, we'll be here next Saturday night and the next 3 before the 16th of June. So feel free to call in and update us for the next 3 or 4 weeks. I thank you for your hard work.
Like I said, make sure everybody follows us on Facebook, because they're going to be able to see when we're going to have these meetings to put the signs for the rally together. We will have a meeting on the 15th, the day before the meeting in Santa Fe. So do follow us and make sure you get over the rail runner. It says to get there for the 7:30 train. If you're there for the first train of the day, we'll have somebody there for that too, to be able to make sure everybody gets up there. I want everybody up there. And since it's going to be first come, first seated, make sure you get up there early.
Okay, if you're getting there early, save me a seat, will you, Tim?
They did say they're not going to be saving seats. Now, I was told that they will have a small block for the severely disabled that need to have the seats, wheelchair and walker access. So other than that, there will not be allowed any seat saving. This was a quote from the DOH.
Okay, well, great, Tim. Thank you very much. We have another caller on the line.
Thanks, Larry. Bye-bye.
Thank you. 770, you're on the air.
Yeah, hi, this is John Paul, healthyups.org.
Oh, fantastic, John Paul. Let me hook in Stephen, if you're there, go ahead. Why don't you call me and I can hook you right into John Palmer. John, you're with the. I'm sorry, I just blanked on the name. Helpful Hope. What's the name of your organization again?
HealthyHopes.org.
HealthyHopes.org. Okay, now we're going to add. We've got Stephen on the line from HealthyHopes.org as well, and then we have John on the line. Who wants to go first and tell us a little bit about what HealthyHopes.org is up to these days?
So I guess I can. This is Stephen. So what Healthy Hopes is a basically a group of business partners and friends that got together and recognized that there are still a huge number of people in this country that need access to medical cannabis and just can't get it because of where they live. So through various means, we are in the process now of purchasing property in Northern California, where we are going to start relocating people to with our nonprofit to our collective there, where they will learn how to grow, and they will work with our growers such as John Palmer, who is with us, and to develop strains of cannabis for their specific conditions.
Okay, so let me ask you, why California? If Colorado and Washington actually have more of a legalized cannabis state. Why did you pick California? Are you hooking up with a ongoing collective that's been around for a while?
We do have resources on the ground in California. We do have several partnerships that we are in the process. We have verbal commitments on now that we'll hopefully be able to announce soon. So it just made sense. We think we can still do it with Prop 215 there. It's still the birthplace of medical cannabis in this country, really.
Absolutely.
And,
1996, they started it all. If it wasn't for California, there would be no medical programs. They helped facilitate and get everything going, and they were the pioneers. It was sort of interesting that a few years ago, when they tried to legalize, that it went down, but that was a whole nother story. So, John, you're going to be involved in growing medicine. What strains are you finding that are really helpful to a lot of people? Do you have any strains in mind?
Well, of course, we're going to be targeting the high CBD strains, since that's what a lot of people seem to be wanting these days. So we're going to be seeking out the most healthy cuts of Harlequin, C4. Hopefully, if we can get our hands on Charlotte's Web, we'll work with that. So we'll just see what we have in the pipeline. And going back to your thing with California, one of the main reasons we also chose California as part of Healthy Hopes' stance is we want to take this back to a sustainable, renewable process. And California is the perfect environment for that, with full sun-grown capabilities.
Right.
So that's another reason to go to California.
I am totally for outdoor grows. I just, as much as you can control everything indoors, for my personal opinion, and I've been smoking it since 1968 when I first arrived in California, and so I don't know. I just find that the outdoor has got a little bit of an edge to it because of the natural sun and so forth. But things seem to be improving with lights and indoors, and of course you can control the temperature and everything else. So now you guys are basically on the East Coast now, and you're going to relocate out to California. Were you guys from New Jersey? Is that where you're calling from?
Well, we have partners in various places around the country. We have, like I said, we have some resources on the ground already in California. I am located north of Atlanta, in the Georgia mountains. John Palmer lives in the Atlanta area, and a couple of my business partners live in New Jersey, New York area. So it's really a nationwide effort of people that have come together here to kind of put our resources together and do something better.
So are you guys actually going to, when I was reading your website very quickly earlier today, are you actually going to help assist people move from non-marijuana states to get help, or are you just going to try to bring them out to California? How is that going to work?
So we do plan to provide relocation assistance. Seth Green, who I don't believe we've looped him into the show yet. I just sent him a message to call in if you with the number that you provided. Seth is going to be our first patient that we move out. He's a really dynamic vocal patient activist from Tennessee that a lot of people probably know.
Is he involved with that website that is very active, an activist? Is that him? He has a web. There's somebody in Tennessee that I see on Facebook all the time that is.
So he has.
Yeah, that's
he has
Greener Pastures.
Greener Pastures. Okay, Seth, if you're out there, go ahead and call in, and go ahead, John or Steve, continue.
John, go ahead. You can talk now.
You're doing fine, Stephen. Go right ahead.
I'll tell you. Go ahead, Steve.
Well, I was just gonna say, really, it's just a lot of people that have gotten together and put our heads together. A lot of like-minded people. It started out sort of as a business thing, and as we went on, we realized that there needed to be another aspect to it. There needed to be a way that we could do something for the greater good too. So that's where we're headed. We've got an offer we've presented for a piece of property in Northern California right now. We're waiting for a response from the owner. And then we plan to go forward.
Okay, we have Seth on the line. Seth, welcome to Medical Marijuana Radio. You're on the air.
Hey, thank you, man. Thanks for having me.
So, Seth, how did you hook up with these guys? Tell me a little bit about yourself and Healthy Hopes.
They actually contacted me. I'm a very outspoken person in my state because of all the lies that the government has been telling me about seizures and the medical deal.
Seth, you might want to turn your computer sound down a little bit. I don't know if you're wearing headphones or not, but we're getting a little feedback. If you could do that, that would help a little bit.
But no, they pretty much, well, I just got tired of all the lies that the government was telling me, and so I took matters into my own hands and went and done my own research. Come to find out that the government knew that it was curing cancer back in the early 70s, and I found out that they was prescribing it in the 30s or 40s, I think.
Right, up until 1937, and even a little later, cannabis was actually in the pharmacopoeia for a lot of diseases, especially seizures and all kinds of stuff. So, from about 100 years, from about 1850 to almost 1950, it was in the pharmacopoeia. So they made it illegal, as you know, and prohibition is why we're all here today. So what's happening? I don't know. Any one of you three can answer this. What's happening in Georgia, specifically with medical marijuana? What's going on there?
Yeah, good that you asked that. I was actually somewhat involved in the legislative process this year here in Georgia as an activist with Peachtree Normal and Georgia Care Project. A bill was presented. It was H. Bill 885, which was basically a CBD-only legislation. It was extremely flawed, the main point being that the legislation protected parents of children with seizures. They were allowed to go to a state where it could be prescribed to them where it was legal, and they would be protected there, but they had to bring it back to the state of Georgia. Once they got to Georgia, they were safe from prosecution. But whatever happened in between the two states was on them. So it was very flawed legislation, so it ended up failing in the final part of the legislative session. That and one of our senators actually wanted insurance companies to pay for the prescriptions for medical marijuana. And being in the South, seeing how here in Georgia specifically, we just recently got Sunday sales for alcohol, trying to get people to understand medical marijuana has been a hard sell. Surprisingly enough, the people support it greatly, and we do have a new bill coming up in 2015, which does have a caregiver patient model built into it, which is much more promising than H. Bill 885 was.
So when
that's where we basically stand.
So when Healthy Hopes gets to California, what is your projection? When do you feel you guys will be up and running there?
Right now,
we want to hit the ground running.
Go ahead, John.
Go ahead. Hopefully we will hit the ground running. Like Stephen said, we've already got resources in place to be able to do just that. Once we get the ranch up and going, not only will we be doing outdoor, but we'll be doing indoor as well. So, as soon as we can get people out there and get our feet on the ground, hopefully within 6 to 9 months, we'll see a concerted effort with some real results.
Will you be
Stephen, go ahead.
Will you be concentrating on any particular diseases or conditions, or just wide open to anyone who needs cannabis treatment?
So obviously, right off the bat, Seth, he would be able to explain his myriad of medical conditions, but he has cerebral palsy and MS and a lot of stuff like that. So that's going to be our main focus when we hit the ground. One thing that I forgot to mention is that we do have a partnership that we are putting together with a national solar company, national renewable energy company, and we plan to have solar and biodiesel to run our indoor also.
Great. You're welcome to plug them if you'd like.
I would like to, but at this point, it's another NDA. So.
Okay, not ready. So okay,
right.
So John, since you're on the grower end of things, are you also the extractor expert? How will you be extracting your medicine?
Well, we intend on getting state-of-the-art closed-loop systems to do all the latest technologies. I myself am not extremely well versed on extractions. We do have partners that will be leaning on for that, with the goal of creating the most efficient medicine to target the needs of our patients. We're going to, of course, take a whole plant holistic approach to this and stay on the cutting edge.
So Seth, currently, are you just under treatment with pharmaceuticals?
No, sir. When I found out, I was on 31 different types of medications, and every medication I was on made my seizures worse, or made me actually feel like I was on crack. I mean, I would get at least about 4 hours of sleep in, and finally I just threw them down the toilet. I just had enough of all of the problems that I was causing my mom because of her losing her job and etc. It was just too much. So, like I said, I took matters into my own hands, and I just started dealing with cannabis in my own way, and come to find out after not being on any pharmaceutical drugs, my seizures have dropped tremendously, but not enough to where I'm able to be productive.
Mm-hmm. I lived with someone for about 25 years that had seizure disorder, and I know how terrible Tegretol, Neurontin, and all those pharmaceuticals can be. You can't think right, you can't function, and obviously, as we've all watched Sanjay Gupta with these reports, and we hear about the kids all over. It's also for adults. It takes care of seizures in adults too. Let's not think it's just for kids. So, Seth, I guess what I'd like to ask you, Stephen or John mentioned that you have a few different conditions like MS and CP, I think. Can you tell me how cannabis reacts to both of those particular afflictions?
For my CP, it really, really, really does a tremendously job. It works miracles. To put it in short terms, it makes me feel normal. I have it on my right side. My muscles are relaxed. I can get a full breath of air because the right side of my body, the muscles tightens, and then it will draw in. It will make my right lung not fill up with a full, with full air, and so and also I have trouble swallowing, and my muscles get so tight that my throat will get so tight it feels like I'm choking, and I will go into such a bad anxiety attack to where I will go into a seizure.
So while you're having symptoms like that, when your throat is tightening up, let's say, are you able to try some cannabis, and then is there a reaction to that immediately, or how do you deal with that when you're having a crisis?
When I'm having that feeling, I take it, and about 10 to 15 minutes, depending on what type of strain it is, it will calm my muscles down, and sometimes my pain will all go away.
Okay, now that's in regard to your symptoms with CP, right?
Yes.
Okay, now what about you? You also have MS?
Yes.
All right, now tell me a little bit about how cannabis helps you with the MS.
I mean, it takes it all away. The pain, I would recommend everyone to use cannabis over pharmaceutical pain pills, because there's no side effects. You can't die from it, and it's worked wonders for each of my symptoms compared to the pharmaceutical drugs.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm willing to do anything to get me healthier, and then my mom healthier.
Well, I wish you a lot of luck, Seth, and good health, and get yourself to California when John and Stephen are ready. And I thank you for calling in tonight. Let me just go around and have Stephen, if you'd like to make some final comments, and then we'll talk to John for his final comments.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity to be on the show. I know we were scheduled for last week, and I really appreciate you getting us back on this week. We're really excited about what Healthy Hopes is going to become. We're totally committed to doing this. Every day we take another smaller step. Once we have this contract signed, there's going to be a huge weight off of everybody's shoulders, I know, and hopefully in the next day or two we'll get that done. We're together on the price. We're just a little bit off on the down payment. So
Gotcha.
once we've got that done, we should be ready to start rolling, get John out there, and then we can bring Seth out. And Seth is actually going to be instrumental in helping build the program for more people to come out, for future patients to come out.
Okay, well, that's great, and I want you to keep us posted. You're welcome to call in on another week and keep us updated on what's going on. John, how about you? Any final comments about your project?
Yeah, just thank you for the opportunity of getting us on and getting the word out. Just looking forward to getting this active and helping as many people as possible. Having been an activist here in the Southeast for 21 years now, this is basically a dream come to fruition. So just look forward to helping as many people as possible.
Absolutely. So,
Larry,
yes, go ahead, Steve.
I'm sorry. I was just going to ask if I could plug our Facebook page. It's facebook.com/healthyhopes.
Facebook.com/healthyhopes, and then it's also healthyhopes.org, right?
Right, and we've set up a medical marijuana refugee forum for patients and for families to start coming together on that forum on our website on healthyhopes.org. So information can be shared and knowledge can be gained, and we can actually hopefully make a difference. So we hope to start building some real connections on there.
Absolutely. Well, I admire what you're doing. It's definitely the time. What we do need to is to nationalize medical marijuana. Every state should have
Absolutely.
medical marijuana. There's no sense in people uprooting themselves, but you know what? People like Seth that are sitting there in Georgia or Tennessee and suffering. You need to go do what you have to do now, and hopefully in the future the politicians will come around. So I want to thank John, Stephen, and Seth from healthyhopes.org. Thank you both. Thank you for what you're doing, and I wish you luck in getting all that together. Thanks, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Okay, so that was pretty interesting. And in regard to the politicians, here's a little clip that says it's time for politicians to get on board with pot.
Hilarious pop culture references abound today. But it wasn't all that long ago that I remember sitting in my 5th grade DARE class learning about the perils of any sort of drug use, including marijuana. Weed, as Tori says the cool kids call it, was portrayed as the gateway drug. You try it and you're pretty much on your way to being a drug addict. That's why it's so fascinating to see how far we've come. Look at this. Today, a majority of Americans support legalizing pot. That's up 22% over the past decade alone. 75% now say legalization is inevitable. There's even been a striking change in attitude among boomers and older Americans. But that's public opinion. On the politics front, even though Colorado and Washington have fully legalized it, not one sitting governor or U.S. senator openly supports federal marijuana legalization. And so far, much of the leadership on the issue is actually coming from Republicans, like Rand Paul, who says it's wrong to put pot smokers behind bars, and governors like Rick Perry and Bobby Jindal, who don't go as far as Paul, but they are at least open to rethinking marijuana laws. And kudos to Governor O'Malley, who also just announced this week that he will sign a bill decriminalizing small amounts of marijuana in Maryland. But for the most part, Democrats have been a little more cautious on this. Take this from the New York Times. Even with Democrats and younger voters leading the wave of the pro-legalization shift, Democratic governors are standing back, supporting much more limited medical marijuana proposals or invoking the kind of law and order and public health arguments more commonly heard from Republicans. When President Nixon kicked off the war on drugs back in 1971, America thought it was important enough to discourage drug use that the nation was willing to put people behind bars and spend billions to do so if that's what it took. But 43 years later, we are asking ourselves if this still makes sense, because there are huge societal and economic costs. For some of these people, this is their first offense. Of course, they all made the choice to use drugs illegally, and I'm not here to defend them. But labeling them as criminals does have a true human cost. Then there's the economics. According to one Harvard economist, marijuana prohibition is costing us as much as $20 billion a year. That's when you consider how much we'd save on law enforcement and how much the country would gain in tax revenue. Just think about that for a second. $20 billion. With $4.1 million from pot taxes in February, Colorado could bring in as much as $100 million this year alone. If you're a politician today, it's hard to look at the current reality and say, you know what, I'm not even going to consider evolving on this. But for those concerned about political backlash, Democratic pollster Anna Greenberg argues that there is little evidence in most states that a politician would pay a price for supporting legalization. She says we've moved into a frame that's not ideological. It's about a system being broken, not working, and legalization involves strict regulation that would allow the state to collect revenues. That makes a lot of sense to the kind of voters that electeds are most concerned about. If that's the way it's being discussed, it isn't a liability for a politician. Now, I think she's onto something. Politicians, take note. People have already evolved on the issue of pot. When will you?
I think that was from MSNBC or CNBC, and it's a show, a commentary by this woman whose name is Abby, and it's called Abbey Road. So we'll be right back to say goodnight right after this.
medical marijuana. The medical marijuana. Radio show.
Well, I want to thank John, Stephen, and Seth from healthyhopes.org. That's healthyhopes.org. Go to their Facebook page, Healthy Hopes, and good luck to them, and I hope that they will help a lot of people. Also, I want to thank Willie Ford at R. Greenleaf and Tim Scott from the Patients Alliance. Let's get everybody down there. Stand outside if you have to. Get inside and talk. We have to stop this. My feeling is they may have to call this whole thing off and reschedule it for a larger auditorium. That's what they should do. Anyway, I want to thank my two radio mentors, both with the initials HS. Thank you for your inspiration. We'll be back next Saturday night right here on Medical Marijuana Radio. Don't forget our archives. You can listen to our replays on timeforhemp.org, 420 radio. Timeforhemp.com, 420radio.org, Pothead Universe. We're also on the Weed, what was it called? The Weed Channel. We're going to be all over the place. And again, we'll be back next Saturday night at 7 o'clock Mountain. Feel well, everybody.
Shalom.
And don't forget, Wednesdays with Larawana on CanawanaBuy.com. That's Wednesdays with Larawana. Check it out. Short 5-minute show. Feel well, everybody. Good night.